The New York City National Democratic Socialists of America believe it's all about creating social change while building social energy in the community. Here now to discuss their upcoming Bronx and Uptown DSA meetings. We welcome now DSA advocate members Jawanza James Williams and Casey Browder. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate
Good,
it.
good, good. And you guys are really taking activism to another level, and obviously with all that's happening, particularly in Charlottesville and the events of recent, really trying to make your voice heard.
Yeah, for sure. Did you want to? I guess primarily we, as an organization, we're not just a Trump response group that formed spontaneously to respond to the horror of this new administration. We are a long-lasting organization. We are building political power, and we are trying to do the work, not only to change people's minds, but also to make sure that our policies reflect what our communities need. So for instance, if we talk about Charlottesville, and Charleston really, violence with white supremacy, it shows up in like cars moving at 40 miles per hour, but white supremacy also shows up in our public policy. White supremacy is the Trump administration and the GOP trying to take away health care for millions of Americans who are working class.
Yeah, I think that along with what Jawanza said, the idea that people are going to be energized by a reaction to the Trump administration, I think if anything, people are more disenchanted and in fear than ever. And DSA is, really trying to show people, we want to kind of build as much change as we can, kind of before we even put anybody in office. And there are ways to do that, and we want to show people what a worker cooperative looks like, what cooperative housing looks like, and these just various alternative models that can show that the people have the power, the renters have the power, right. The workers have the power to organize themselves and run their institutions.
And I know one of the things you're talking about in your work is workers' rights, and give a little bit about the work that you're doing with workers' rights.
So what I would really want to say is that a lot of folks in this country, just from the history that we've experienced, where worker movements and socialist movements, communist movements that are uplifting, the working class and building the power of working people, has continuously been crushed. And I feel like we see that happening now. But with the Fight for 15 that's happening all across the country, we support initiatives like this because we understand that the working class needs to have, access to livable wages, because it's part and parcel to the issue of capitalism. But I don't know what the chapter itself is doing exactly on this issue.
Yeah, well, let me ask another question about injustice, because we, yesterday watching the speech of the president, a lot of people have said, and you've heard it on this show, that, the speech was ultimately divisive, and racial injustice continues to be a major, problem across America. How does DSA look at racial injustice, and what are you guys doing about speaking towards it? Because I know that you guys have been very vocal.
Well, I think racial injustice is part and parcel with capitalism. I think a lot of socialists will say that, the idea of a racist institution will be sort of alleviated when we reach a future where class is, sort of destroyed, and we're all on a more even level playing field. Specifically, what DSA is doing is, there's been a lot of attention around prison abolition. Anna DuVernay's documentary, The 13th, it demonstrates that we really, the prison system is a way of, it's slave labor. And so we recently voted at the National Convention on a prison abolition strategy. And we in New York are specifically focused on the Close Rikers campaign. So Mayor de Blasio came out and in support of Close Rikers after, several very visible protests by the Close Rikers campaign by Just Leadership. But he put a timeline of 10 years, and we think, why 10 years? Why not much sooner than that? Because this is a huge problem. Prison is just one of many institutions where you're just kind of shuffling away the poor and underprivileged away from, the higher classes, and that's exactly what we're finding.
Could I also deepen here? Also, I think, as democratic socialists, we recognize that classism is an incredible issue that we've always dealt with in this country. But we also, what's special about us and about our analysis is that we do not think about classism separate of race. We understand capitalism as always being a racialized capitalism. That the stratification of wealth and the distribution of wealth that is disproportionately unfair, that is exaggerated based on one's identities, and racism also informs that. And I think that President Trump and the GOP overwhelmingly does not recognize that reality. They're not operating from a framework that is based in the lived experiences of their constituents.
And so give us a little bit about your position with immigration, because obviously we know what the president's stance is on immigration. You guys have particular work that you're doing as well.
Well, for me, I can say that immigration is second to people's humanity. People are human beings. Like, our earth truly has no borders. And if people are trying to search for better opportunities to build their lives, to save their lives, then who is anyone to try to stop that process? But ultimately, what I think is that, again, you have to operate from a framework or from an analysis that recognizes the reasons why we have mass immigration in this country. So, for instance, when we have corporations that are leaving our country, which Trump always talks about, and going to other places and getting a lower wage for that work, it destroys local economies. So, for instance, the U.S. overwhelmingly since the 90s, before Trump, is creating situations in, for instance, Mexico, that is devastating local economies, forcing people to have to figure out what they're going to do. So, of course, they come here. Why would they not?
And so before we get out of here, I want to ask the question about, you got some upcoming branch meetings and things like that. How can people become a part? What can they do, and how can they connect?
We'll definitely come out to our branch meetings. We have monthly branch meetings. This Thursday at 7 p.m. we're meeting at the Andrew Friedman home at like 164th and Grand Concourse. We always provide food and childcare. We don't think that there should be any, we try to alleviate any limitations to why people wouldn't be able to come out to a meeting. And our meetings always give a kind of teach-in for people, you know, like that anybody can access. We want to make it accessible, and then also do report backs from our various working groups, so hear about the work that we're doing.
And just one more thing for any viewer who is confused by what we mean about socialism and democratic socialism, really briefly, I just wanted to say that one, if you're drawing on past history, remember socialism is better said socialisms. The socialism that we are organizing around is about making sure that everyday people have access to the rights that they have. If you have access, if your right is to get an education and you have no way to get to that school, then what is the point of having that right?
I gotta leave it there because that's the time we have for that segment. I got you. All right, and we've got you. Thank you so much for coming. Jawanza James Williams and Casey Browder, our guests here, and we thank you both for sharing with us.
Thanks, Daren.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we had to cut them off. Why? Because we're at the end of the show. And I got to thank our guests for joining us. But most of all, I want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch Recablecast at 5 and 10 on Optimum's Channel 67. If you have Verizon Fios, you know we're on Channel 33. Anytime you can check us out on the web at BronxNet.org. I am Daren Jaime saying thank you for watching. Until the next time we meet, stay safe, God bless, and keep this channel wide open. Take care.